So we got David and Samir, and we're going to answer the question that everyone here, all these tech-focused people want to know, and that is TV's dying, obviously, and all the ad dollars are going over from TV to digital, and you're going to tell us why that's happening, right? Because I know you guys totally agree on both of that. That's a real question. So the whole basis of this discussion, this fireside chat, is the myth that TV is dying.
Yeah.
First question's for David. Is it dying? Is it worth spending your money? And if on TV, why?
Look, it is a myth. TV is not dying. It's changing. Everything is changing. That's why you're here. But myths are incredibly powerful. And they're frequently rooted in some sort of truth. And the truth is that if you look at the TV numbers, the audience is aging. Now, if you happen to be selling an annuity product like part of my company does, that's great because your target is a 65-year-old. All right, so TV's fine. Why would you worry about TV? They're there, they're watching. They're particularly watching cable news. All right, however, if I'm selling a different kind of product, if I'm working with a different kind of target audience, as we also do in other parts of our business, TV's not the best medium for us. In fact, email remains incredibly successful for us, depending on the product, depending on the audience, depending on the message and the purpose.
So my audience and younger, so when I'm 65, I'm probably not going to be watching a lot of TV.
Maybe not.
So when do you see that shift happening?
Well, I think you can see it if you just look at the numbers over the last 5 to 10 years. As different media come on board, the viewership or the consumption patterns change. That's just the way it is. However, a few years ago, I was at a conference with the Financial Times where the big news was the rise of digital publishing and ebooks and how bookstores were dying and how physical books were dying. But if you look at the latest headlines, guess what?
They're outselling ebooks again.
They're not dead yet.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's kind of an ego thing. But
look, you just have to be thoughtful, you have to be creative, and you have to be flexible.
Now, Samir, you're in a different kind of digital advertising. Your placements all are going direct to people's inboxes.
Yeah.
And you told me before when we talked, this has such a better ROI than traditional digital advertising. Why is that? What's so, like, people hate getting spammy emails. So what's so special about your kind of emails that make people get that better return on investment?
Well, I think like David said, the use of the channel for your given audience done well, you can make any of them effective. And I think that's absolutely true of email. You could use it to spam folks and your engagement rates will be anemic and you will not get the ROI. So if it's a sword, a knife, and if you use it well, it can cut. And I think Digital Marketing Association cites a stat around for every $1 invested in email marketing, you get a $38 return. Part of the reason it's so effective is it's very inexpensive. It's very inexpensive to reach people that way. If you are doing it with folks who have subscribed to your brand, they want to stay engaged with you. They want to get updates about what you're up to, offers you may have, et cetera. You can use that channel very, very effectively. I think the challenge for the marketer in this day and age where there's such a proliferation of channels by which you can actually get in front of an end user or an end consumer or an end subscriber or whatever the language is in your business, you can do it with TV, broad-based, you can do it radio, you can go email, you can do push notifications or in-app messages, a browser notification. There's so many ways to get in front of your user. The trick is using individually those channels well, and I think increasingly over the next 5 years, we're going to see the challenge hopefully addressed of how do I orchestrate across those?
So that's interesting. So you said that stat, for every $1 you put in, you get 38 back.
Yeah.
That's huge. So why?
It's an extraordinary ROI.
So why isn't there more of the pie of digital ad spending going towards email marketing? Why is it still all Facebook and Google?
There's been a great divide, and this is where I think there'll be a lot of interesting innovations. You think about that flood of money that moved from offline to online over the last however many years. They went into stovepipes. They went into individual places, and a lot of them did go into search engine marketing, digital advertising. Some has increased into email marketing. None of those actually get orchestrated. None of them work across one another. The question of why more into, say, search engine marketing or display ads than in email marketing is by nature of the channel. Email is just a highly inexpensive channel. It doesn't cost you very much to send email to the ISPs, which are the inbox providers. And so structurally, it just competition will drive that price down to a very small dollar amount. Whereas in the online advertising space, there's limited numbers of keywords, number of people looking for them, real estate on the sides of highly trafficked and read publications. There's just an inventory, whereas the inbox will keep taking.
So inventory is one, yeah, or one per person.
I think Sameer's making a very important point, though, about regardless of what vehicle you're using, a major challenge remains: how do you integrate? How do you integrate across it? What are the kind of metrics you can use across all the different vehicles you want? What are the different ways of managing across those vehicles? Because frequently the organization that Sameer is selling into or that I'm trying to work with is highly siloed for very good reasons, and for reasons that may have absolutely nothing to do with marketing. And even less to do with our media buying strategies, whether media is an email or a 30-second TV spot. So an ongoing challenge across the span of my career has always been, how does a company integrate all these kinds of things? And as you look at the products or services that you're trying to sell, how do you fit into the way the company has to buy, which may not be logical to you? Right? It may not be as obvious as a 38-to-1 return.
Right.
All right, well, I still have to buy TV because you know what? My influencers, don't really open their emails anymore. Maybe some of them do, but
but I got to reach them in a multitude of ways.
I've got to reach them over and over
That's
and
right.
over, because the other thing is the more media there are, the more messages there are, the greater the resistance there is as a customer or as a consumer of that kind of corporate information. Right? And so I have to find a way, like the last campaign we did, we tested it, and we found that there wasn't a bump in our attitudinal shift unless you reach somebody 6 times. All right, well, if I sent you 6 emails on the same thing with the same...
That's not going to get it done.
It's not going to get it anywhere, right?
And
so how do you integrate it is a major challenge for the people you're trying to sell into.
And so for the folks in the audience that are tackling this for your own businesses, thinking about both sides of the equation on marketing of brand and how you establish what David described earlier, the emotional engagement with your audience, and demand gen, effectively, like actually getting people to come in and buy the product or service it is that you are trying to offer to the marketplace. And both are critically important, and you got to think about how you're going to invest in all these different channels to do both effectively.
Right. So this one's for David. So recently, Facebook and Google have come out saying, we screwed up, we've made some poor reporting choices and misreported a lot of data back to our advertisers. How can you get to the point where you start at least trusting the data they give you? The whole thing is, we have the data, so we're going to be able to tell you more about the people you're reaching, but then they say we misreported. When do we get there?
Well, I don't think you get there. One of the first things I say in financial services, I'm always in evangelical kind of mode for the role of marketing and the role of branding. Because in financial services, if the price is right, you're going to find a market, right? That's just part of the way it works. So I'm always selling the benefit of brand and the benefit of building not only the transactional relationship, but also the emotional relationship that can enable you to do more and more successful and higher value transactions down the road. Look, I've been looking at squidgy data since I got into marketing, and it used to take the form of, media tracking, and everybody did a better job of delivering the financial influencers than anybody else, including Business Insider and The Economist and the Wall Street Journal and Forbes. They all did a better job than anyone else, and they all had the guts to say it, right? It's just the way it is. So I think anybody in marketing has to look at the data and welcome it, absolutely. But welcome it with a kind of a skeptical eye and an acceptance that we're all trying to figure out this flood of information that's coming toward us. My fantasy is to have an algorithm that targets your algorithm so I never have to talk to you, right? But if I do that, then I'm missing out on something that you guys are getting benefit from by coming here today, as opposed to simply logging on, right? Or following. You're getting the benefit of emotional interaction and engagement with people, being able to look at them in the eye, shake their hands, listen to the timbre of their voices. That kind of stuff matters. And very little data can actually, well, Neuroscientists will tell you they can, but I've used those kinds of techniques too. And you know, that's maybe directional.
So on the email side then, is there anything you can do more with data? I mean, is there some kind of tech you can build into, you're going direct to the customer already, is there anything else you can do to learn more about that person?
Yeah, I know, it's extraordinary how much of, because we have known customers, on the email side you have a known customer ID, which is that email, it's the universal handler. Whereas on the, say, online advertising world, you're talking about a device ID, a cookie ID. So we're just able to know a lot more about what individual consumers or subscribers are interested in, what they're opening, what they're clicking on, what they're engaging with, and then being able to stitch together a profile of, okay, well that's across the email channel. What about all these other channels? Where can we bring all that together? And then based on that, you can actually track it all the way through to close, particularly for those that are doing online businesses. If you're in any kind of a commerce business, your ability to close that loop now is dramatically higher than it has ever been before. SendGrid ourselves have very much an online commerce-based model. We have over 50,000 paying customers, and 99% of them were acquired by those developers for our email transactional product and marketers for our email marketing or promotional product, them finding us, coming to us through SEO, SEM, online ads, email, all these channels we're talking about. We reach out to folks across those channels, and we can track, when they come back and they buy, we can track all that stuff back to which campaigns, which channels. Samir maybe has a higher proclivity to open emails at 11 o'clock at night, whereas David may be looking at push notifications when he wakes up in the morning. Which of these channels are they reacting to more? And then being able to leverage that. So I do think that on the digital side, I do think there's a higher degree to attribute and get granular. I agree with David. It's not a perfect science by any stretch. But it allows a marketer in this day and age, I think, to be a lot more data-driven. In our own marketing organization, we have implemented a CAC ROI, CAC being your customer acquisition cost if you're in any kind of an online business, and your ROI. So we actually model to, this is how much we spend in this month for any given cohort. I take the revenue of the cohort, I map it out over their lifetime value, and I can figure out the NPV of that to, and for our case, we try to get it to a CAC IRR of 150%. It's a 30% cost of capital. That has driven a behavioral change in our marketing org where we're actually spending a lot more now because we can actually track to the ROI, and we know, well, how much should we be spending? Should we be spending a lot more or a lot less? We couldn't answer that question well 2 years ago in the absence of this metric, and now aggregating the data in a way that we couldn't before. It's been very powerful for our own business.
Now, so everything you just described, even if the data is imperfect, and that's being probably kind, calling it imperfect, it's still better than what we had before, right? Television cannot figure this stuff out. It probably never will be able to until it maybe makes the transition to digital a little bit more. So in the meantime, are you surprised to see this shift happening?
God, no.
No?
I mean, no. I've been a living, breathing human being engaged in marketing for 30 years. So no, the shift doesn't surprise me at all.
Even if it's an imperfect shift.
Oh, absolutely. Look, it's a human endeavor, right? So it's imperfect by definition. We've got an example. We've got a very large business in Japan. We've got a global sponsorship deal with the New Zealand All Blacks, the most successful team in professional sports history. We did an ad in Japan using the All Blacks, developed our positioning, and totally social. We spent $2,000 to promote this ad, right? Over 80 million views as of yesterday.
Wow.
And that was on what
80 million views. That's all over the world.
Okay.
Rugby fans, Japanese, Americans, everything, right? Do I believe that 80 million people actually looked at that ad, watched 3.5? It's a fabulous ad. I urge you to go look at it. But do I actually believe 80 million? No. But do I believe that's better than the 3,000 that I got through some other kind of placement? Absolutely.
Yeah, directionally.
Right, directionally, yeah.
It's directional,
So how do I quantify the value of that ad? I don't really need to, because you know what? The other thing I've got to take into consideration as a corporate marketer, as somebody who's responsible for not only marketing products and services, but also for building a reputation and sustaining a brand, is I've got to take into account the internal audience and the excitement that our people inside feel when they see the company represented in an interesting, engaging, and creative fashion, and something that their friends may be talking about. And that has real, non-quantifiable, but real value for me.
But you saw the direction.
And that is the ROI around brand has long been in marketing a challenging place. It is so critically important. And I think that every leader of any business, I imagine lots of folks out here in the audience appreciate how important your brand is. It is hard to put a dollar number to it, to make it specific, but the ROI, I think about SendGrid, we've long flown under the radar screen of SaaS companies. We're now over 100 million in recurring revenue. It's a big business. Not a lot of people knew about us. We started running ads on NPR, on radio, even more old legacy than TV that we're talking about, because that was supposed to die when TV came along, if everybody remembers, right? A few decades back. It didn't die either. And by the way, we ran those NPR ads, and I will tell you, we run billboards. Those things, I get people comment on them to me all the time now that didn't know what we did or who we were, and now they do. And so it is, I really believe that for this audience, if you're running a business and a digital startup or a tech company, think about both aspects, brand and demand gen, and the ROI conversation is super important. I think you can be way more precise on the demand gen side than we ever used to be able to. But on the brand side, do not underinvest in the brand, because it is critically important to have that halo for all the other activities you do.
So he gave us go ahead.
No, I just want one follow-up comment on that, because thank you for the brand call out, but however, you got to make money before you can have a brand.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
You got to have a product or a service that people want. You got to have that kind of demand. You got to have that kind of track record as a strong foundation for a brand. Brands are a result of good business. For the most part.
Well, and I would say, and my argument would be that for every person out here, every interaction you have with somebody about your business is a brand building or brand destroying event.
That's true.
In SendGrid's case, we have a community development team. There's that guy right there. I've got some of our folks that are here that lead that effort for us. And we've invested in a community development team that has gone out and built relationships with accelerators and incubators and VC portfolio companies, developers around the world, hackathon events, you name it, for 8 years now. And certainly in year one, we started to build a brand. It was a very small brand, but we started to build it. Year two, it got bigger, year three, and it is this snowball effect. There's a cumulative brand building effort that takes a long, long time. And so if you're in year one of your business or year 5 of your business, you're probably still early on in building that brand, but be intentional about how you're shaping it and what you want that to represent when they hear, in our case, when they hear SendGrid, how do we want them to feel about that brand? That matters a great deal to us, and we have greatly benefited from it, especially in a self-service business model. That word of mouth is by far the most powerful lever that we pull in marketing.
Well, I think that's good advice to land on, so we'll leave it there. Thanks, guys, for joining us.
You bet.
Thank you.
Steve. Thanks, David.